Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and it's the end of the year, December 2022, and it's time for my last garden tour of the year, brought to you by my sponsors, Vessi Seeds and Savers Gardening Products. It's starting to get cold, things are starting to get frozen. The goldfish here are under some ice, and they're still in the pond. I didn't get the new pond completely made. Let's go have a look. Why talk about it? Why don't I just show you everything? Let's go. All right, so we're outside the garden. I've sort of rebuilt this little area here, just cleaned it up a little bit, sort of pulled it apart, put it back together, put some new pegs in, these are the old logs, just cleaned it up, made it look nice again. It was starting to fall apart. I've got plans for next spring to do the same thing here, but everything's starting to freeze in place. All the ground's starting to freeze now, so things are kind of done in terms of major garden works, unless we have a really, interesting warm spell. Today I suppose it's warm enough to do something, but I got other things to do today. Anyway, so that's where that is. Everything over here is kind of shut down. The grass that was planted, that winter rye, it's starting to die back a little bit. Garlic came up about 6 inches, then it just stopped as the ground's starting to freeze. I got my parsnips here under domes, the ones that I haven't harvested. Carrots over here that weren't harvested under dome, same thing over there. Everything else is just sort of put down and mulched. Got all the kale here pulled up, and I mentioned in a video recently where I make sure I pull them out at the roots just in case there's any pests. There's all kinds of, that whole family of plant, the brassicas, right, whether it's kale cabbage or whatever. Really, the only real pest problems I have in my garden tend to be focused on that category of plant. Any pest that's laid its eggs around the roots of the plant, that's where they tend to do that. I figure if I pull the roots out and expose them to the elements, that'll kill them. Right? So it doesn't kill everything, it doesn't solve everything, but it's it's really, you don't eradicate pests, you manage them, right? So that's one way to do it. Over here I moved the grapevine to a different spot. Don't know if I killed it, don't know if it survived, who knows. Reorganized all of these raspberries. It was a sort of triangle shaped garden. I just made it a tight row. Every year the rabbits seem to find their way in through my fence no matter what I do. I think I might put a secondary chicken wire around the base of these plants to give them a little extra protection, because every winter I see little rabbit tracks in here in the snow, and they just cut my plants off at about 2 feet high. You can see ones that have been cut off, right? It just seems to be what they do. And so I never get a decent raspberry harvest at all. So anyway, that's the plan for next year. Everything here is sort of put down. I still have to, geez, I got to get some leaves. I still have to cover my my strawberries. I haven't covered them yet. Over here, I made this garden a little bit bigger just because I was moving things around, right? And you can see I planted garlic here for next year in this big, nice open space garden. So that's a good one. So this should do well. Over here, I've pulled up, as far as I can tell, all of the sunchokes that were growing here. So I need to do something with this asparagus garden. I need to put some sort of box around it and shift its position, but I can't do any of that right now. I'm gonna have to wait till spring to do all of that, to move it. Partly because I can't tell where they are. When they start shooting up in the spring, there's different ones growing all over the place in the garden here. I want to move them all here, make a proper bed, and to have this be the asparagus place. There used to be an apple tree right up at the corner there, right? Shading everything, just taking away from the garden's ability to be a good garden. Things were still growing, but it was not optimal. We're just, we're at such a, we're always so starved for sun here, right? I mean, you can see, look at today, not a sunny day, right? We're always starved for sun here, so every plant needs all the sun I can get it, and having something grow at the foot of a tree just is not optimal, put it that way. This was again part of that sort of tree garden, so I've just moved a box from over there. I'll get to that section in a second, but basically I took all the boxes that were over there, moved them around. The ones that were falling apart, I dismantled them. So this will be a nice sunny, right? I got a nice big open spot here, nice sunny garden here. This is where the pond had been. right? So now there's no pond, right? So I filled that in, creating the new pond over there. And now, instead of having my pond in one of the sunniest parts of my garden, I have a garden in one of the sunniest parts of my garden, which makes a lot of sense. And I decided to go with a big bed like this because you get the most garden space per foot of lumber. I wrote an article on this on my Substack page, maritimegardening.substack.com, about sort of what's the best shape and size for a garden bed. Check that out if you're interested in that topic. The short version of it is square and big. Right? The more squarey and big, the better in terms of getting square footage per board length, right? And I did a whole bunch of math and spreadsheets and showed all that. I got totally nerded out on geometry in that article, so check that out if you're so inclined. Anyway, this is going to be a big bed. I mean, the problem with a bed like this is that it's difficult to access. You know, a nice 4x8 like this, you can get at it from either side. It's not a big deal to walk around. It doesn't create a big obstacle in your garden, but you know, you do get less square foot of garden per board, and lumber costs a lot of money these days. So the solution with this, because it's so hard to sort of manage the garden, is to have I should do a video on this, but basically you have a board to step on and when you have to get in there, and you plant something that doesn't need regular constant maintenance. So I wouldn't plant kale here, right, because you're always having to deal with it, right? And I wouldn't plant beans that had to be picked all the time. I'd plant something like potatoes, where you plant them, you mulch it, and you pick them once, right? So you're only really in the garden mussing around twice in the entire year, something like that. Or pumpkin, right? Maybe even zucchini, maybe. You know, zucchini's a bit of a stretch, but you need a lot of space. Squash is another good one, right? Made another bed over here. This is where all the blueberries had been, right? So I popped this new bed in here, had enough room for that. I got nice spacing in between the beds now, right? So now I got all this beautiful garden space in a nice sort of sunny spot of the garden. There had been a garden bed over here that never performed well because it's in the shade of this hill. That direction is west, so it would always, the sun would be gone, you know, by, even at the height of garden season, by 6 or 7 p.m. we wouldn't get that extra. You could see, like, you'd be over here and there'd be sun, and over here there'd be shade, just 6 feet away, right? So you could still grow things here, but it was not optimal. So this is where a pond should be, as opposed to right here, one of the sunniest spots I got, right? So I hired a couple of young guys to come, and I was going to pay a guy to come in with a tractor, but then I realized I'd have to pull my fence apart and just wreck a lot of things to get the tractor in. And then for, I think, less than the cost of having a tractor, certainly less than the cost of buying a pond liner, I just had a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old, I think 19, maybe 18. They just came over a couple hours every week on Sunday and just dug and dug and dug and dug. And this thing goes down pretty far. I'd say it's at least 6 feet deep. Now, I didn't get it as far as I wanted before, so I think the goldfish are going to have to spend their winter in the old pond. And maybe I'll do a video, so I won't get into it too much here in this video, but suffice it to say, this pond is not done yet for the season, or it's not ready. Okay, this is as far as we got. Everything's starting to freeze. I did try to do a kind of cement work here, make a sort of barrier, but even this, I don't think it, yeah, see, it's still soft. I'll do a video about the pond later, but basically I did a kind of half-assed cement kind of job, and of course it did not harden. But that's part of the reason, was that it's so darn cold, right? So anyway, the pond, this is as far as we got. I got a nice big pond. It's like maybe 14 feet long and at least 6 feet deep, maybe deeper. It was difficult to do this in the fall because every Sunday when the boys came over to help me out, I had to drain it using a siphon. But, you know, we did get a lot done. All this big pile of rocks over here, right? These are all the rocks that were bordering the gardens that were in the center here, right? So we just piled them up here I had to stick them somewhere, right? So I think this will be a neat little feature. Hopefully this is a place that snakes and frogs and all those things will like, because it's, you know, kind of a temperature controlled environment that they can enjoy in the summer months, and maybe it's a sort of a good place to overwinter. I don't know, right? But I had to put the rocks somewhere, and we didn't want to take them too far. So we just made a mound of rocks here. It's like a 3-4 foot high pile of rocks. I got a lot of ideas for this pond for next year, but I'm out of time for working on them. And it's frozen. I mean, there's a bit of water there, but it's water over ice. It's just too cold to do anything more. And because the other pond is so well established, it just makes no sense to move the fish in here. When it really rains good, this pond fills right up. Right over here, I've got a little outlet pipe, right, for the water to go out when it gets too high. When it really rains good, it fills right up to the brim, right? And that's without anything. That's just water coming down the hill, as far as I can tell. So it's a naturally filling pond. Works great. Enough about the pond. Over here, back to the I'm sort of moving around a bit in the garden because it's a bit windy, and I'm trying to use my body as a wind wall, wind protector. I moved the grapes to over here. Don't know if I killed them. No idea. I got to set up some, if I do one more major project, well, I guess not a major project, but one more project before things really freeze up good, is to set up some sort of, you know, some sticks, some sort of trellis to attach these grapevines to get them off the ground. That's one thing that does need to be done, because I just moved it and watered it, and that's it. I would like to get a mulch over the roots of all these plants before the winter, because that couldn't hurt, right? But I'm having a heck of a time sourcing out wood chips from a tree service. So I mean, I phone them and leave messages, but they don't call back. So the grapes got moved here. All the blueberries, I put them in a nice line here, right? As opposed to, I had them in like almost like a square pattern, useless for picking. Nice straight row like this, and a good 7 feet from the fruit trees, where I got the apple tree, a pear tree, and another pear tree here that I moved late October, I guess. So assuming those trees survived the winter, that'll be good. Bit of a problem with the apple tree, because I've only got one apple tree now, and you should always have 2 different varieties of apple tree. So I'm not sure how that's all going to work out. And we really beat the hell out of the apple tree when we moved it. So who knows how well things are going to work out for that apple tree. But anyway, it's moved. This is where, you know, regardless of what happens, there's going to be 3 fruit trees here. I'll see what happens, right? If the 2 pears live and the apple dies, I'll get another pear, and I'll just have pear trees and no apples here. You know, and if the pear trees die, I'll get apple trees. But this is where they should be, at the far north end of the garden, so they don't cast shade. I had them in the center of the garden, putting shade on everything this side of them. Now they're at the far end of the garden. They're not going to cast shade on anything. It's all going to work out fine. The garden beds that were here last year, I'll just smooth this all out and mulch the whole thing, right? Maybe, you know, next season I might put pumpkins and things like that back here, because whatever kinds of trees are growing here aren't going to have any size, so I might as well use the space. But eventually there'll be big trees here, and I'm not going to want anything growing around, because I want to be able to access the trees and then be casting shade and basically reducing the garden's capacity to produce. So that's what's going on there. I still got a few sunchokes to harvest in this bed over here before the ground completely freezes. It's sort of been freezing and thawing, but this is a bed here where a couple previous years things didn't grow well here, so I decided to put sunchokes here just to see if they'd do well, because sunchokes seem to do well when in places where other things don't do well, and they did great. I mean, look at this one here. You know, I got a big hand, I got a big thumb. That thing is like 1 inch at the base. That's a massive sunchoke plant. So that one did great. And over here, this was parsnips. So we picked all the ones that were close to the sides, and I put this little dome over. And in general, that should allow me to dig them up during the winter months. Sometimes, I mean, so that's the same thing I've done over there, right? Just a different shape, so a different kind of dome. So sometimes, even under a dome, the top few inches will freeze, right? especially if we have a stretch of days where it's like this, there's no sun, and it's, you know, well below zero. Then everything, I mean, the sun is, the dome is not what keeps things from freezing. It's the combination of the dome and the sun and the microclimate the dome creates, allowing the sun to heat everything up and creating a little, you know, trapping that warm air to thaw everything out. So if there's no sun, everything here is just freezing, right? So I mean, during the night everything freezes, and then during the day, if it's sunny, everything melts out again. And so every day every night it freezes a bit, every day it thaws a bit. Generally speaking, you can maintain your access to the root vegetables when you use a system like this in my climate where I am, right? Where the coldest it gets, it's minus 20 Celsius, but it's much more typical during winter for the temperature to be anywhere from -5 to -10. We'll have warmer days than that, and we'll have colder days than that, but about -20 or -22 is about as cold as it gets. And if it's ever that cold, it's a cold snap. It might last for like a week or so, and then it goes back to being -10, -5, that sort of thing. But not very sunny. It's not one of these cold, sunny places. It's a cold, foggy place. So it's a different kind of cold. So anyway, this works just fine. Up here where I've got this terraced bed on the south-facing slope. South is that way. For whatever reason, and I'm not 100% sure why, everything I plant here does poorly. I think it's because the soil dries out, but I'm not sure. I've planted squash here. I've tried peppers because I thought it's nice and sunny. I've tried potatoes last season, and the potatoes grew, but they didn't achieve any real size. So I put sunchokes here because sunchokes grow anywhere, and this is a sunny spot, and they don't mind cold and they don't mind wet. You know, they're kind of an invincible. I mean, as long as you give them lots of sun, they seem to do really well. So we'll see how that works out. And you know, and also it's a good place for sunchokes because south that way they're not going to cast shade on anything. They're not going to cast shade on anything I care about. So I think it'll be a good location for them. So this is now a sunchoke garden. I think it'll be happy like that. Anyway, that's where we are, end of 2022. I had a great year, great growing season. Lots of, you know, a number of things could have been better. And that's why I changed the whole organization of the garden, because I just, you know, a handful of things, having trees and things in the trees and bushes in the middle of the garden, where it just robs sunlight for other parts of the garden. I think now I've got better garden space. I think I think I've got about the same amount square footage in terms of bed space, maybe slightly less, I'm not sure. But I think everything's going to work better. So everything will be more productive with what I have. And I'm really looking forward to next season. I've still got a lot to do. I got to get some new sand in here, I got to do all kinds of stuff. But, you know, in terms of like major hard work, moving earth, wheelbarrows, shovels, pickaxes, all that stuff's kind of done for the season. Everything's starting to freeze up, and it's just not you know, just doesn't make any sense to be out here breaking my back. But who knows? Anytime there's a nice day, I want to be out here doing stuff. So, anyway, I hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. Check out my sponsors. Check out my Substack, my weekly Substack article at maritimegardening.substack.com, where I talk about the same sort of things I talk about during my garden videos, but I kind of come at them a different way because I'm writing. I'm not just talking off the top of my head. It's a different presentation style. More thought out, more analytical, hopefully interesting to read as well. I think they are, but of course I wrote them. So anyway, check that out, and know that until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching. Hey folks, want to help support everything I'm doing here? Check out my sponsors, Vessey's Seeds and Safer's Gardening Products. For Vessey's, go to their website, vesseys.com, and use my coupon code GAVS23, and you'll get free shipping as long as there's a pack of seeds in your order and there's no oversized items in your order. Check out the description box of this video for details. For Safer's products, Woodstream products, you can buy all the things I use in my garden, slug and snail killer, BTK, and all. You can buy that from Vessey's, or you can go to their websites for a much wider range of products to solve just about any kind of problem that you can imagine with high quality natural ingredients like oils from seeds and flowers and stuff like that. If you're in Canada, go to woodstreambrands.ca, and as long as your order is over $69, you get free shipping. If you're in the United States of America, then go to saferbrand.com, and as long as your order is over $45 US, you'll get free shipping from them. So yeah, if you want to help support the channel and the podcast, and they sell something you need, buy from them, and that'll help support everything I'm doing here. Thanks a lot.